Myself, Vignesh KJ, as introduced by Sakshi. And before we go into the session, if you guys have any questions, please post it in the questions tab. We can address it before we get into the session. So before I get into the agenda of the session, I would like to tell you a little about Zoho. Zoho is a cloud-based technology provider for businesses. We've been in the market for more than 25 years. We service in around 190 plus countries, and we now have 80 million plus users using Zoho Books. Using all the Zoho products. And today we'll be focusing on Zoho Books, one of the Zoho products. It is also one of the finance application. So Zoho Books is part of Zoho Finance Suite, which consists of 5 applications. So today we'll talk about Zoho Books. And in today's session, we'll be covering what is e-invoicing, why e-invoicing, what Zoho is doing to help you with e-invoicing, then some features built specifically for Kenya users, and at last the Q&A part. So recently we saw Kenya launching e-invoicing, and it made it mandatory that everybody raise e-invoices from December 1, 2023. So we thought it would be a great opportunity to explore the Kenya market and help our Kenya customers. And we decided to come up with the Kenya edition of Zoho Books. So this particular edition is both VAT compliant and TIMS compliant. It's an accounting application. And about Zoho Books, it's basically an accounting application for bookkeeping, and it has various functions like you can send your invoices, manage your reconciliation, track your expenses, track your inventory, generate your insightful reports, and much more. And today we'll be seeing the VAT components of Zoho Books, what makes Zoho Books special in Kenya. Before we proceed further, I'd like to tell you a little about our journey so far. So we came up in 2011. We created Zoho Books for the global edition for the first time. And in 2014, we came up in the US market with the US edition, followed by UK and Canada edition of Zoho Books. Then in 2017, we saw a massive growth because of the launch of GST in India, and we came up with the Indian edition. And in 2018, we came up with VAT compliant UAE edition and Saudi Arabian edition post the launch of VAT in these countries. And in 2019, we came up with an edition for Bahrain. And in 2021, we came up with our Oman edition of Zoho Books post the launch of VAT in Oman. And in 2022, we came up with Mexico edition along with our beloved Kenya edition of Zoho Books. So some of the features that we saw that we can see in this edition is generating your VAT returns as per the format of KRA. And it is obviously cloud-based. So anybody can use the system from anywhere. So post-COVID, we've seen the world transitioning from office workforce to a remote workforce. So anybody can now use Zoho Books from anywhere. And it has a built-in inventory management. You can raise your e-invoices. And we integrate with TrueCheckout, using which you can collect your customer payments. And we have 70 plus reports, business reports added in Zoho Books. And Zoho Books also integrates with other Zoho applications and non-Zoho applications, payment gateways, And Zoho applications, some Zoho applications like Zoho Inventory, Zoho Expense, Zoho CRM, Zoho Projects, and much more. So basically, Zoho provides an operating system for your business here. Now, let us get into the major part of this webinar. So let us take an example of a person who owns a furniture shop. So he's already a VAT payer in Kenya, which makes him eligible to switch to the recent TIMS. So this person, he already uses an accounting system, but unaware of how he can transition to the TIMS phase of Kenya. So that's when we comes up with Zoho Books, the Kenya edition. So let's see how we got started. So this will be a live session where I show how you can do things in Zoho Books. So if you're right in front of your system, you can open your Zoho Books organization and shadow my actions. Okay, I'll proceed now. So why e-invoicing was launched in Kenya? That's a question. So first thing, this is majorly to improve the revenue collection and at the same time to reduce fraud actions. And this provides accurate data to the KRA, which they can use to analyze the revenue and then predict the future accordingly and what needs to be done accordingly. And this also improves the authenticity of the refund provided by KRA. So they'll be sure of the refund they're providing. And from a user perspective, it is user friendly for both the buyer and the seller, and it helps in pre-populating almost every data in your KRA portal while you're doing your VAT filing. So now let us see how Zoho Books can help you here. So once you have, once you sign up for your Zoho Books organization, so you'll be setting up your organization basic profile. That will be done under the organization profile where you'll provide your address details and your basic company details. So once done, so we'll go to the VAT part here. So under settings VAT, we can provide our VAT registration details. So here I can provide my VAT registration number, VAT registered on date, and generate first tax return from date. So this is the date from which you'll be generating your first VAT return from Zoho Books. So these dates are important, and you have to ensure that you provide your VAT number correctly. And we also show the different VAT rates that is available. So general rate, which is the most used, 16%, reduced rate of 8%, and zero rate. And if you have other taxes, you can also add it from plus new VAT. And you can also take a look at the rules that we have set up here. So for each and every tax, we have set up the VAT rules. That is when it should be applied to the transactions and on what basis it should be applied. So you can simply click on it and view. So this is basically our VAT setup. So now that I've provided my VAT details, I can go and enable my e-invoicing. So all you have to do is go to settings, preferences, e-invoicing, and configure your the system details. So right now, Zoho Books integrates with the Type C ETR supplied by OneSource Solutions. So once you have the device purchased from them, you can enable e-invoicing and configure the details. So you'll be required to input an e-invoice service IP, which will be a public IP, and then a sender ID and ETR device serial number. So this information will be provided by the ETR provider once you purchase the device from them. Okay, so I've already configured my device details here. So this is basically the 4-step setup for configuring your e-invoicing. Now let us have a look at how you can create an e-invoice with Zoho Books. So an e-invoice requires you to have a QR code in the PDF of the invoice which you generate, and this invoice needs to be pushed to the middleware ETR device, which then push it to the KRA portal. So let us have a look at how we can create a invoice. So I can go to sales invoices. And so I can choose a customer. If I don't have a customer, I can directly create it from sales customer section. So while creating the customer, you'll have the option to select the VAT treatment of the customer. That is whether the customer is registered for VAT or non-VAT registered or a non-Kenya customer. So if you choose VAT registered, you'll have to provide the VAT registration details of your customer. And if it is a non-Kenya customer, that is, it will be treated as an export transaction. That is, this is for your foreign customers. So once you create a customer with the correct VAT treatment, we can then proceed with creating an invoice. So I'll just navigate to sales invoices and I'll create the invoice. So I choose a customer and I'll choose my product. I can just ensure that I provided the correct invoice number, invoice date, uh, invoice terms. I can select my items and I can see that tax is selected automatically for 16% because the customer is a VAT registered customer. Now I can save the invoice. So once you save the invoice, you'll see the PDF but without a QR code. So I can, it now shows that it is ready to be pushed to the ETR device. So I can simply click on push to ETR device and complete it. So my invoice is pushed to the ETR device. As you can see, the status here shows pushed. And I can see a QR code is generated for the same. So we just saw how to create an e-invoice in Zoho Books and how to push it to the KRA portal. Now, let us see how validations work while creating transactions. So one of the major advantage of having Kenya edition is the validations that you have. So for example, I am selecting an overseas customer here. So non-Kenya customer. So now I'm providing the details and I'm adding the item and I'll save the invoice. So now system gives you an error saying this is an export transaction and we'll have to select 0 rate for it. So we can make the changes accordingly and we can save it. I'll also show you an example of error that happens when you push it to the ETR device here. So this is an example for it. So I've created the export invoice and I'm choosing push to ETR device. So since it is a 0 rated transaction, you require to provide the HS code in the invoice. So system says enter the HS code and try again. You can also see the reason from here, the very same reason that was mentioned earlier. So I can go ahead and edit this invoice and provide the HS code. So HS code, if you know the HS code, you can directly type it in. And if you don't know, you can search for it So since it is an export, I can directly use the export of goods. I'm saving it. Now I should be able to push it to the ETR successfully. And my QR code is also generated. So we've seen how an invoice is generated with the QR code and how to handle the errors. And along with that, we also have views created here. So pushed for e-invoicing, these are the invoices which are already pushed. Then yet to be pushed for e-invoicing. So these are draft invoices which you've created but yet to be pushed for e-invoicing. So you can open it and use the option push to ETR device. And then failed on e-invoicing. So these are the invoices which failed with error, and we'll have to take actions accordingly. So now we saw how to create an invoice. Now let us move on to the next part, creating a credit and debit notes. So based on the regulations, e-invoicing regulations, once you create an invoice and push it to the ETR device, you'll not be able to delete it. So that's when credit note and debit notes comes to the rescue. You can create if customer says they don't want your service any further, or in case if you create an invoice incorrectly and push it to the ETR, you can create a credit note for the same. Also, the credit notes generated will also have a QR code and will be pushed to the ETR, which also push it to the KRA portal. So I'll create it for the local customer. So I have to choose an invoice number 2 here. I can ensure that I've provided the credit note date and credit note number correctly. And I can select the item that the customer is returning or the item that was selected incorrectly in the invoice. Sorry. Now I can save it, save the credit note. So it shows again push to ETR device. Okay, so my credit note is generated and I can see QR code is also generated for the same. So you'll not be able to delete your invoices any further once once you start doing e-invoicing. So you'll have to reverse it with credit notes. And typical examples would be customers canceling your sale or when you accidentally create an invoice for a customer. Now we can see how to create a debit note. So debit note is basically used when you want to increase a sale amount or when you want to increase your account receivable value. For example, say you created an invoice for 2,000 shillings, but later on you're realizing it should have been for 3,000 shillings. You can create a debit note for 1,000 here, and this will increase the receivables. Debit notes can also be used in cases where a credit note is created incorrectly. In such a case, you can raise a debit note and allocate it to the invoice. Allocate it to the debit note and close the sale. So the steps are pretty much straightforward for debit notes too. You can go to sales invoices section and you can find the option create new debit note. Otherwise, you can also create it from the particular invoice for which you wish to raise the debit note. And yeah, create debit note. So it will be shown under the more section. It will be shown only for the invoices which are in overdue or in paid status. In case if the debit note option is shown, create new debit note option is not shown, you can directly go to settings, preferences, and ensure that the debit note module is enabled. And let us see how I can create a debit note in Zoho Books. So create new debit note. I can select the customer and I can provide the invoice number for which I need to raise or increase the value. I can provide a rate, select the same tax. A debit note can also be pushed to the ETR device and it will be reflected in your KRA portal as well. So far we saw how to create invoice, how to handle errors in the invoice, how to create credit notes, and how to create debit notes. Now, one other advantage that we provide in the Kenya edition of Zoho Books is for managing your imports. So, being being a businessman, you'll have to uh, import goods from other countries or even services. So while importing goods, it has to go through uh, various processes like it has to come through customs authority. They'll charge you a customs duty, or they'll also put a VAT. So this all these needs to be accounted here. So this is where Zoho Books helps you, uh, and this is applicable for your import of services too. For import of services, we have a feature called as e-slips, and for import of goods, we have a feature called as bill of entry. So let us have a look at how we can create an e-slip and bill of entry. So first, when your overseas vendor raise a invoice to you'll have to record that first. So I'll select my vendor. I'll provide a bill number and choose a date. I can choose the item that I'm importing. So if you notice, VAT treatment for the supplier is non-Kenya, and I won't be able to select the VAT here because I have to account for the bill of entry here because this is a imported good. So I'll save it as open. Now I'll click on more on top right, and I'll use the option create bill of entry. I can provide a bill of entry number, date. If there is a port code, you can provide that. It is not a mandatory field. You can choose how you paid it. Uh, you can now input the customs duty value, and if any changes needs to be done, you can also do it to the accessible value of the item, and you can select the VAT. So now my bill along with the bill of entry is created for the import. This is how my bill of entry would look like. So it will show you the accessible value, then customs duty plus any additional charges, if any, and then the taxable amount. Now, so we saw how to import goods. Now let us see how the import of services work. So again, I'll have to create a purchase bill for the service. I'll provide a bill number. Bill number basically will be your supplier's invoice number. Consulting, I can say consulting service. I can choose an expense account. Provide a rate. Again, if you notice, I won't be able to select the tax. I'll say the bill. So you'll get a notification in the overview itself saying you'll have to create an e-slip while importing services. So I can click on this hyperlink, or I can click on more and use the create VAT e-slip option. I can provide an e-slip number. I can choose a date. I can verify the accessible value once. Okay, I have to select the account and done. So my purchase bill is created along with the e-slip. I hope we all saw how to create the bill of entry as well as the e-slip in Zoho Books. So this aids you in your import transactions. And this is one of the key features in helping you manage imports in Kenya edition of Zoho Books. This particular feature won't be available in the global edition. So now moving on to the next part, one of the interesting parts that we provide in the Kenya edition of Zoho Books, it is the VAT return. So VAT return, so based on all the transactions that you created so far, that is your invoice, credit note, debit notes, expenses, purchase bill, bill of entry, e-slips. Based on all these transactions, we help you generate your VAT return report. It will be in the very same format as what you see in the KRA portal. So all you'll have to do is copy the values and add it to the KRA portal and finish it off. So let us have a look at how you can generate your VAT return report. So I'll go to report section. I can scroll down and under VAT, I can see VAT 3 return. And I can use generate VAT return. So while I was setting up my VAT settings, I chose the date as generate first tax return from date as 1st February. So that will be the start date. So it is 1st February. And I can choose 6th February for now. Normally it is a monthly filing. So you can see the VAT return is generated. So this particular report will be in very same format as what you see in KRA portal. It will have the details of your general rate, that is 16% transactions, and other sales, that is your 8% reduced rate, zero rated transactions, exempt sales. Then taxable purchases, that is your expenses with 16% VAT in it. And your expenses with other rate, that is reduced rate of 8% and zero rate. And again, your exempt purchases. Then the e-slips will be shown under the VAT claimable on services imported into Kenya section. And all these fields can be drilled down. So in case if you want to verify the values or what is reflecting this value, you can click on it and see the list of transactions that is causing this value. So I can see my invoices that is generated in this between this particular period. I can see the total. This can also be exported. The same can be done for every purchase, sales or purchase, or every module of this VAT return, VAT claimable on services imported into Kenya. I can see my e-slip. So once you use this VAT return and do the filing in the KRA portal, you can come back to Zoho Books and mark it as filed. So you're done and dusted for the period. You can then proceed with your transactions for the next period. So all these transactions that you created and filed in the VAT return report cannot be edited or deleted further. So I hope you saw how we generated the VAT return and how we marked it as filed. Did I miss any part in between, Sakshi? Okay, that's perfect. So now, who can use Zoho Books? Basically, everybody can use Zoho Books. So VAT registered businesses, non-VAT registered businesses, or any business owners, accountants, and the important part about Zoho Books is it's very user friendly. It has a friendly interface comparing to what we see in the traditional systems. So all you have to do is that you ensure that you provide the transactions or input the transactions correctly into Zoho Books, and we'll take care of the rest and we'll provide you the right reports. So this is pretty much about today's session. So I've covered all the VAT aspects of Zoho Books, uh, starting from what is e-invoicing, steps to enable e-invoices, how to create e-invoices with Zoho Books, and we saw some features, other features for Kenya specific edition